Item C, please.
Item 6C, adopt resolution initiating property owner notice and protest process as required by Proposition 218 for fiscal year 2019-20 garbage rate increase proposed by Recology San Bruno.
Director DiMartino. Director.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Martini. I'm the City's Finance Director. It is my pleasure to present. It is my pleasure to present the garbage rate adjustment for fiscal year 2019-2020. So the objective of the presentation this evening is to receive an overview of Recology's rate application for fiscal year 19-20 and describe the review process that the city will embark upon. And then we'll also be asking the City Council to adopt a resolution initiating the property owner notice process and the protest process, which follows Proposition 218 processes for fiscal year 19-20 garbage rate increase proposed by Recology San Bruno. So the agenda for tonight's presentation is to provide you with a really brief overview of the franchise agreement between the City of San Bruno and Recology, talk about the rate adjustment being proposed for fiscal year 19-20. I'll give you a really quick rate change summary for residential and commercial toters. I'll talk about this San Mateo County city disposal rate comparison chart of how San Bruno's rates compare to other cities in San Mateo County. I'll talk about the application review process currently underway, give you an overview of the protest period and the timeline to implement the new rates. I'll show you a quick screenshot of what the public notice looks like, and then be happy to take any questions that you might have this evening. So as I mentioned, the City of San Bruno has an existing franchise agreement with Recology San Bruno. It was made effective on July 1st, 1998, and it currently will expire on June 30th, 2024. It includes many terms and conditions related to solid waste collection services, including composting and recycling. It also talks a lot about the administrative processes in regards to billing, record keeping, fees, and then also the process that dictates the rate change adjustments. There is a process by which every third year there is a detailed rate review, which is conducted, where a more thorough application is submitted to the city from Recology, including information from their financial statements and other rate assumptions. In the 2 years in between the third year, it's a more truncated, compressed review that isn't so detailed, based on other factors like CPI or inflationary assumptions. So the rate adjustment being requested by Recology at this time is a 5.34% rate increase from last fiscal year into fiscal year 19-20, and the new fees would take effect on July 1st of 2019 if approved by the City Council. So over the past year, many municipalities have seen many rate increases in excess of 10 to 20%. Recology has stated that the largest driver of the increase is due to the effects of the National Sword campaign by China regarding contaminated waste. This is primarily for materials being shipped to China, such as paper, cardboard, and plastics. Prior to this campaign, 10% of materials shipped were allowed to be contaminated. The new rules require no more than 0.5 contamination. Meeting this stricter threshold is much more expensive for garbage companies to meet. As a result, recycling revenues have gone down and are not expected to increase in the foreseeable future. Also, because of the high standards to be met, the cost for preparing recyclable materials to export has increased pretty drastically. 2/3 of the cost increase in San Bruno is due to the National Sword campaign. So 2/3 of the 5.34% is due to the National Sword campaign. Garbage management is by nature a very high capital, very labor intensive operation. And those costs quite frequently outpace normal like CPI inflation. So that's another factor as well. So this table on this slide shows you the residential and commercial garbage toter rate change summary from the current rates to what is being proposed. And so, I'm sorry. This is the per monthly fee. And so based on the rate change for a 32-gallon toter is the first line here, for example, it will increase by $1.61, going from $30.09 to $31.70. The examples of the proposed rate change is for your typical residential and commercial services listed on this table. And these rates are for garbage, recycling, and compost bins combined. This increase would be effective for bills being produced after July 1st, 2019. Just by way of reference, about 80% of the city's residents have the 32-gallon toter, just for your reference. Solid waste collection and disposal rates do vary among San Mateo County cities based on several factors. Cost for service can depend upon the frequency of recycling collection, organics composting, the ratio of residential and commercial customers, and unique operational constraints in some jurisdictions. The following table here is just listing the current monthly rates in 18 nearby cities for a residential 32-gallon toter compared to San Bruno. You'll see the average residential 32-gallon toter for these 18 cities listed here is $32.62. San Bruno's toter rate would be the 10th lowest, so just a little bit below the average of about 92 cents, or 2.8% lower than the average of these 18 cities. So about in the middle is what we're seeing here compared to the other cities. The Finance Department has already conducted a preliminary review of Recology's rate application for fiscal year 1920 to assess the need of the increase and compliance with the franchise agreement. No decision has yet been made to increase rates at this time, as I mentioned earlier. Staff has reviewed the items of the application as it relates to the agreement, the various terms and conditions of the contract, including the adjustment factors and the various cost of living assumptions. Staff has already analyzed many of the expenditure line items and supporting documentations on the application. We've also compared the application financials to Recology's audited financial statements as well. We reviewed projection assumptions, adjustment factors, so on and so forth. The city has also recently retained R3 Consulting Group, an independent consulting firm that specializes in utility rate reviews exclusively for public agencies, to conduct a thorough review of Recology's fiscal year 1920 rate application. The scope of R3's review will include a review of the application, the supporting documentation received from Recology, Recology's financial statements, the adjustment factors, the franchise agreement, the calculation methodologies used in the application, and then they will submit a report to staff on their findings and recommendations as it relates to the application. The city has not retained an independent consulting firm to conduct a review of Recology's rate programs since fiscal year 13-14. At that time, the city retained HF&H consultants to conduct a review of the organics program. But a full comprehensive review of Recology's rate application has never been conducted. And so we do feel that it's necessary to do that at this time. It is considered to be a best practice to do that. And particularly in a detailed rate year, it's a great opportunity to do that. And as in prior years, the City Council may choose to create an ad hoc garbage committee to review the rate application. Staff and a member of the consulting team would be happy to support the subcommittee if the City Council chooses to do so. The public hearing and the protest procedures are consistent with Proposition 218, provide the notice to residential and commercial property owners and residents 45 days in advance of the public hearing, following which the City Council can act to approve of the rate increase. Only if written protests are received from a majority of the property owners would the proposed rate increase be disallowed. The following schedule on this slide outlines the city's implementation of the proposed process for considering the rate adjustments. Assuming City Council directs staff to move forward with the noticing process, we are scheduled to move forward with mailing notices on March 26th. So again, just the action proposed at this time is to review, is a review of the proposed rates, and then moving forward for the public hearing in May for requesting approval. This slide just shows a quick screenshot of what the proposed rate notice, public notice looks like. The public notice is a 3-page document which goes into a little bit of detail about the rate changes for each of the different types of toters. It talks about the hearing schedule, the protest period. It talks about the approval process. It provides some descriptions about the rate adjustment being proposed, the increases to the garbage recycling, and the organic container types. So just wanted to show you what the notice actually looks like. So just to reiterate, my request to council this evening is to adopt a resolution initiating the property owner notice and protest process for the fiscal year 1920 rate application. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I would like to also mention that Kirsten Pinocchi, the general manager from Recology San Bruno, is also here, and she's available to answer questions you might have as well.
Ms. Pinocchi, did you want to say anything at this time? Okay. So we're going to bring it back to council. A few things on the report. So first of all, as you had indicated, Director, that the organics was in 13-14, and to your knowledge, and going back to former finance director, that we have not really had an outside to really go through the detailed report, which is our opportunity every 3 years or so to really go into the minutia of what is being requested of us. So I know there was a question about having an ad hoc committee, which we've had in the past. It is my belief that what I'm planning to do is to have it as a study session for the entire city council. I think the city council should have that opportunity, so since this is the first time that we've had an outside person to really finite the items. They're going to come back with the data with staff. I think it would be a value for all of us to hear it at the same time, have those questions answered rather than having two people and then coming back to the council as a whole. I think that's collaborative, and I think that would be of better value for us. I think also another item that has come up in the past when we had the water sewer rates was in regards to the property owner only, and or then those people that are maybe paying the bill who are renters / tenants. So I would want to hear from council. I would think we might want to lean that way, but of course I want to see what the council feels as far as the notices are concerned. So with that, open it up to council for comments. If there are any or questions, I should say. Irene.
Thank you. Before we do that, with Prop 218, who has to make the protest? Is it the property owner or the person if they're a renter? So that might decide who gets what.
So this was discussed in some detail in prior meetings.
I thought so.
Right.
I have a long...
It seems to be discussed in some detail at most meetings when this issue comes up. So if you take a look at the notice, which is attachment 2 of the packet, what it says is that it will consider public comments as well as written protests. So under Prop 218, it's the property owner that can protest, but we have historically allowed individuals who were tenants, we've given them notice and allowed them to submit written comments as well.
Okay.
And I think the notice contemplates that prior direction from the City Council.
Okay, I thought we had, but so clarifying. So I suggest we continue doing the same.
Okay, Michael?
Through the chair, I remember when that discussion came up last time, there was a concern about the cost of the additional noticing if we weren't going to do just homeowners, if we had to extend that to homeowners and basically the people who were paying the bill. And I don't remember what that impact was to our cost of doing additional mailings. But I do remember that we didn't get a very different result as of the number of protests that we got was very small in either case. So I mean, as an experiment, I know we were ready to try out, being more open, more encompassing, but if it's going to, I'm just curious about what that does to our cost.
And Michael, you're correct. I believe my memory is about as far as the protests. Also, my understanding is Recology pays for the notices, so it's not an additional cost to to us as a city.
Well, I would argue that we end up paying for it.
Well, you may pay for it, but I mean, we're not going to it's not going through our meter and all of that. But at the same time, you brought up a question that we wanted to see what that would produce, and it really didn't bring forward a lot more, even though it was more broad-based. So that's a valid point. Other questions, comments?
City manager.
Oh, I'm sorry, city manager.
Yeah, I cannot answer Councilmember Salazar's question precisely, but the cost for a citywide mailing is about $6,000. Roughly $4,500 of that is postage alone. And so to really answer your question, we'd need to know how many of the property addresses have an owner that has a different property address. And because we plan to send it to every address and the location of all property owners that have a different address as the physical address in San Bruno. And so we can do that analysis. I don't think it would be highly significant. My gut is it wouldn't be $9,000, but it'd probably be between that $6,000 and $9,000 mark.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The reason I say it is when my mother owns property, tenants pay for it.
So
So
our residents, they're tired of rate increases. Of course they are. Everybody's tired of paying more, but it's kind of it's in your contract, and it's kind of it is in the business that when cities make these contracts, they allow the disposal company to recover ongoing costs. We had a 5-year contract, is that correct? 5-year contract we just recently approved, and I voted for that. At the time, it includes the rate increases. I doubt there's any garbage company out there that would sign a contract saying they're not going to have any increases in the future. Just like all other businesses, they have to recover their costs. It is large this year, probably larger than in recent memory. So if we take that data and 2/3 of the rate increases because of China not accepting our garbage and our recycling, and that cost is 3.5%. So the increase that Recology is asking is 2% year over year. Very important to keep that in mind. For the first time ever, we're going to go ahead and have this audit. I think that's money well spent to show to our community that these numbers are valid. I don't want to see your rates go up. I don't want to pay more, but that's life. It's terrible fact that things cost more, and we have to live in this world, right? So what I would like included in this mailer is a reminder for everybody to use their free pickup. Every year you're allowed 2, I think 3x3 area of waste, and you call Recology up, you let them know, they'll say yes, okay, leave it out on the certain day, and they will come and pick it up for free. I've used that one time in my 17 years here in San Bruno, right? But that's a free service or a service that's provided with that could be reminding people, so it's not all bad news. It is bad news to pay more, right? But to make it more digestible, a reminder that you do have this service included. So I appreciate the efforts that we made to not only let the residents know, but the property owners know. It's $3,000 more for just letting the residents know. Their vote doesn't necessarily count legally, correct? that vote from the residents, if only property owners have a true say in this, right?
Yeah. So tenants would not have a vote.
Right,
They will
right.
be able to provide
Right.
the city council with public comment.
And over the years, we probably had, a couple hundred, maybe maximum, people protesting the actual rate increase. So it's probably not the best money spent, but it's still, I think, reaching out to the residents to letting them know that what the law is. So those are my comments, and I'd like to hear what anybody else has to say.
I would just say on that, I would think whether, well, maybe staff and Recology work together, whether it's the insert in the utility bills, whether it's the publication that you place out, I think there are the reminder of the 3x3 so that it gets disposed of correctly. But I think in addition that there's a 20-gallon tote that folks can opt to, since you said 80%, I believe, DiMartini, was 80% of our residents use that. And I know I could go on my street and there are some that could probably have it smaller if they really wanted to. And maybe it's just a reminder that that option is available. So maybe those items would be better in an insert or whatever, but you folks can work what is best effective in order to communicate those. Yes, Marty.
So Recology, Kirsten, you came up here, I believe it was last year, and kind of said there was going to be this outreach to remind residents about, keeping their recycling bins a little cleaner. How, if you can just kind of give us a little bit feedback on how that's working for you.
Thank you. We are still communicating with the residents on their blue can that if it's contaminated, we are letting the resident know that the items that were contaminated and how to take them out. We notify them by the cart hanger. We then notify them by a letter. And then the customers essentially will give us a call back, and our customer service rep will kind of remind them what's not allowed. Things are getting better. From the residents, so we're not getting as many contaminated carts. So we are able to change the behavior, which is our ultimate goal. So it's working, and we're continuing to do it. We're about to update the cart hangers, so we're narrowing things down because they are getting better. There's not as many contaminants, so it's a ever-changing process that we're going through.
Thank you.
Anything else from council?
To the chair.
Yes, please, Mike.
And Chris, so it's interesting that the main driver for this increase is the increase in the cost to recycle materials. And initially, when recycling was introduced, it was actually a way for us to reduce our costs by diverting from the landfills. And so as that landscape sort of shifts, it'd be interesting to know, and I know you're probably not going to know this off the top of your head, but it would be interesting to know how our costs currently are, or how expensive it is to, say, handle a ton of compost versus a ton of recycling versus a ton of landfill, and see if there's anything that we can do as residents to help control those costs. If we could make lifestyle adjustments that would kind of help. Maybe we make sure that we tell the newspaper company to stop throwing the free newspaper out there. Maybe we stop printing as much. If the paper cost is driving it, we can make decisions about how we consume plastics, and maybe that could help offset some of those costs. And I think it's important for residents to know that there is something that we can do as individuals that could help drive these things, and in the grand scheme actually help the environment by doing things that are more sustainable. I know the composting, we keep that local. Some of those materials come back to us, and we have a little bit more control in that. So maybe if we can divert more of our waste into that stream, we can help keep costs down. So it'd be interesting to know if there's some kind of analysis that we could get on that.
That's a great idea. I think the main driver, now that recycling has changed, is to stay away from the single-use plastics, to buy in bulk and to put it in jars, at home, and keep reusing, and to really avoid the single-use plastics, to avoid such things as the styrofoam, and make it on the consumer responsibility. Don't purchase from companies that produce a lot of single-use plastics, and put it back on the manufacturers. But I can tell you, it is the loss of revenue that we don't get for the recycling anymore, and there is now a cost to recycle. to, to put it through the sort line and then get it to a processor at some point. So the biggest driver of the rate increase, as you well said, was the problems in China. So it's not just in San Bruno, it's all over.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Kristen, I would be very interested in finding out how the composting program is going. It's been 3 years now?
Yeah, 2014. No, it's been longer.
Okay, so I know when it first started, people were kind of hesitant about it, and there was a lot of discussion about exactly what to do and what it was going to cost and all those other things. So can you come back sometime and arrange it with the city manager and tell us how much diversion has occurred because we have organics and all those other things that are associated with it? I would be very
Absolutely.
interested. And I know you're working, and your education coordinator is working very hard with all the schools too. And that would, I think, people should know that that's happening.
We would love to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other question? Marty?
I didn't ask earlier, this is, I believe this would be for staff in their analysis for the rates that are throughout our county, that if we're seeing a larger increase that these cities are going to be dealing with, because if it is the recycling component, I'm pretty sure that most of the disposal companies are facing the same problem. So that should be reflective in the rate increases for what place we're currently in 10th or 12th. And that data, is that based on previous year's data, or has any of that data been increased or revised?
That data that he put on the slide, that is current rates in all those cities right now. And some of those cities they have rolling rate increases. Some are January, some are July, some might be October. They're all very different, but those are current rate increases as of today.
So it's fair to say that we're most likely going to see at least a minimum of 3.5%, because if that's the amount of increase that we're seeing from this China recycling problem, that it should be reflective across all garbage companies.
Well, I don't know that she's going to
I'm
want to
not
speak on
gonna
behalf
go
of
there.
other garbage companies.
I think we're trying to use I'm hoping a little common sense in a way that it's going to affect everybody. This is what's happening.
John.
I can provide an initial response to that. So in initial conversations we've had with R3 Consulting, right, there are consultants that we've already retained. They've talked to us generally about what's happening in the industry, like a little bit more broadly. And they were the one that provided me with the industry analysis of some cities are seeing between a 10 to 20% increase. And so our increase is not close to that. But I want to sort of reserve the right to get a better debrief from the consultant before we can come back to you with a better analysis.
And that's why I'm suggesting that we do a study session so we all hear the same thing at the same time, and we have that expert before us that we can also rely on. Okay, so is there any action on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the noticing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just on the question,
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about why I think it's important to send to both property owners and the occupants. I know some people who own property that they rent it out and they personally don't pay the bills. So I think it's important that the person who's consuming the service know that the rate is possibly going to be increased. So that's my other rationale for that. So having said that.
Please. Okay. Clerk?
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye.